I'm Leslie Foster.
And I'm Rory Foster, and about a month ago or so, we were having dinner with our kids' principal, the principal of the school, and we started getting the idea that, wow, school might get canceled, and our teachers are going to try to be figuring out how to teach online. And so Leslie and I put together a little helpful video for teachers on how to teach online, because we've been teaching online for a little bit. And now we're like 4 days into this at-home learning thing. And just the other day I thought, Leslie, we should do something for families too, because this is a whole new world for families who hadn't in the past chosen to do school at home. And a lot of families are trying to figure out how this is going to work.
And we're definitely not experts. We're in this with you guys, but we just thought, we have a little bit of experience. We have a lot of years of working from home, and thought that maybe we could share some of those and how we're trying to implement those with our new family life, work, study, home routine.
That's right. So before we get started with specifics, one thing to remember, two things. First of all, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. And what we're going to share with you are some tips and things that we've got about 19 years of working from home, and some tips and strategies that have helped us be productive in creative times. We have to create things, and then in the day-to-day, just sort of business, busy work type stuff, how to be productive working from home. So we're mixing a little bit of that. Hopefully you can test out a few of these strategies and see if they work for you in your family.
And it's important to remember that it's not just you that is overwhelmed, but as a nation, as a world, we're all in the same spot right now, juggling work or loss of work and kids at home and trying to balance it all. So it's a very collective issue right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, let's make sure actually that this is so visible. I think you might need to scoot a tad. Okay. All right. Hopefully you can see now. So let's get real. Really, everything is different now. Nothing is what it was even a few weeks ago. Our whole situation has been turned upside down financially, with health, with kids at home, and work stuff. It's all upside down and sideways at the same time. And with your school at home, it's going to get frustrating at some point if it hasn't already. So we're 4 days into this. We've had our moments.
Yep. And each kid has had their moments.
Each kid's had their moments, and but I think it's going okay. Your health and your kids' health is number one priority, and not just physical, I mean mental. So there's a lot of stress, anxiety, uncertainty, ambiguity, and it's really important to just keep that in the back of your mind and say, hey, if what we're doing is driving us crazy, we need to reassess.
Yeah, there's absolutely time to adjust, and keep that in mind that it is not set in stone.
Absolutely. So one of the realities about tough situations is that they create an opportunity to either bring you together or separate you further. Difficulty is powerful in that way. It could bond you together, or it can separate you. And it's probably not one or the other. It's probably moments of each. But keep it in mind that tough situations, are powerful in relationships with your spouse, your partner, your children, etc.
And we've been talking about, as a family, how can we be proactive in helping all of us out as a family unit, helping each other out, and helping to de-escalate when the frustrations are high, and encourage one another too.
Yeah. So, and there is really just natural tension and stress on relationships with changes like this, kids being home, work being stopped, or unemployment, whatever it might be. So your next response, you really have a lot of power. We have a lot of power in how we interact. Your next response to your spouse, partner, kids, it can either escalate a situation or diffuse it. It could either, bring you closer or separate you further. And it's not about what happened previously. It's about your next response. And all of us hold the power to direct how our relationships go. The good news is that everybody is in this boat together. And so if there was ever a time where your bosses, your coworkers, your friends, and everyone could be more flexible, give more grace, it's now, because we're all on the struggle bus together trying to figure this out. Yeah. So, all right. So at the end of the day, cut yourself some slack. Tomorrow is a new day for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So working from home, what's worked for us over the years as we have built a company and kept it productive. How do we work from home? I know that for me, having a space dedicated to work is important. That, I put in a lot of hours, and it's nice to be able to have a space to do that. That's not where I try to relax in the house also. So for me, that's something important. And my space doesn't have to be super clean or anything like that, but you have some requirements for your workspace, don't you?
I'm very visually affected by a mess. And so in order for me to be the most productive, to optimize my productivity, especially during times where I need to be creative or have all my brain power in use, I have to have a tidy workspace. That's just how I am. So that's one of my first steps in order to sit down, is to make sure that my workspace is cleaned up so I can focus.
Yeah, so you can focus. And I think we have a kid or two like that. Not all of them, but a kid or two also needs their space to be clean. Yeah. Having and keeping a schedule has been important for us. Just to treat it like a regular workday as much as possible.
And we have had to learn how to set boundaries in the early years of our business. When we were teaching and going to grad school and building our company, there were no boundaries, and it was exhausting. Mm-hmm. And I think that applies for now too, especially if you're a teacher and you're getting bombarded with emails and tech questions and stuff. It's good to set some structure about, I'll be answering emails or during these 3 half-hour chunks during the day. But it's really important to set boundaries so that we can keep our immunities up, stay healthy, and have that family time together.
Yeah. Now, I know you could work in your yoga pants all day long, but me, I really can't. I have to get dressed. I have to get cleaned up. It helps if I take a shower. In fact, I even have a pair of shoes that I wear around the house because it just makes me feel like I'm working and I've gone to work. And so
I dressed up for you today.
And so, it might actually make a difference in your productivity if you get dressed and cleaned up. It might not, but a lot of this is person by person. Eliminating distractions, turning off email, social media, and stuff like that when it's time to create, produce. I was mentioning earlier, there are times, there are moments or responsibilities that I have that are really creative. I have to build something or create something, and if I have distractions, then I'm just super unproductive with that, and what I end up creating is not so great. And so there are moments where I just turn all things off and stuff goes unanswered so I can sit and focus. And that's kind of what you were saying about your workspace too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, how are we going to optimize our kids' productivity? And if you're working from home too while they're trying to do homeschooling, how are you going to optimize your productivity? So what are the factors to, clean up your space or get dressed or turn off your social media? There are times when we need to do that for sure.
Yeah, and along those lines, optimizing your work time, the task switching is really draining on your resources and your energy and your progress. Tell us more about task switching.
Well, I don't want to quote anything, but there was a study a long time ago about the amount of time that people actually waste if they are doing many things at one time. And that could look like having many browsers open and switching between classes for our kids, or me just switching between different projects or planning various classes or lessons at the same time. I'm way less productive than just focusing all my energy on one. When I need a break, then I naturally switch over. But I try to set a designated time, say for an hour, I'm just going to focus on this task. And then if I feel like after that hour I can continue going, then I do. But if not, then I switch tasks. And that's been really, really helpful, especially when you have a lot on your plate. It's easy to think I need to do this. But I find I actually save more time when I just focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah, I read that article too. It was something about like the fallacy of multitasking, how you feel like you're being more productive, but really the mental energy and the time that it takes to reorient your mind to this other task is after the course of the day, you're burning X% of minutes or hours in just switching tasks. So for you, scheduling a workout time is pretty important too.
I have to work out in the morning, and that allows me, it's something that ignites my brain. I become way more creative. It's like all my synapses are working at the same time and my ideas fall into place. When I go on a run, I actually bring my phone, and if ideas are coming in my head, I just do a voice recording. And I feel the energy, and I know exactly where I'm going to start once I have that workout in the morning. You
We don't share that.
Do not.
All right. So, and then one more thing, one of your strategies is to line you out for the next day.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, because let's be honest, our work is never really done, but I set 3 tasks or priorities or goals for me to work on the next day, so that when I'm ready after my workout and when I'm ready to get going the next day, I know exactly where I'm going. And if I do more than 3, then I get too overwhelmed. And so 3 is the perfect number for me.
Yeah. And so these are some tips that have worked for us just as working from home. Nothing to do with the kids and their studies yet. And Leslie, you have been applying some of these lessons we've learned and tips to getting the kids lined out. I've been involved in some other things, and so I mean it's been great that you've been able to do that and lead on that. So how have you applied some of these work from home tips to the kids?
Yeah, well, let me just back up. We have 3 kids at 3 different levels, so elementary, middle, and high school, so their needs vary greatly as far as technology, their workloads, and their personalities. And so you're probably in the same boat where you have different personalities, different needs, different levels. And we are working couple as well. So we are having to shift our work schedules and help each other out so that we can continue our work. And so definitely not the expert, and we're 4 days in, but I've been thinking a lot
It's
about
only
it.
been 4 days.
I've been thinking a lot about it, and I just want to share some tips and use them if you can. If not, that's fine, but hopefully they're helpful for you. But what's great for me is to realize that nothing is permanent. So if today did not work out like I had hoped, or for one kid it didn't work out, then we have an opportunity at the end of the day to reevaluate and adjust and tweak it for tomorrow. And it's actually really great life skills that our kids are learning right now, as far as project completion. If they're not able to complete a project, why? What is it? Is it because they're not motivated? Is it because they need a brain break? So these are life skills that are awesome to be able to teach our kids at this unique time in history, where many of us who don't homeschool wouldn't normally have. And I just want to praise all the teachers out there for doing all the work for teaching our kids these life skills in school on a day-to-day basis. But nothing is permanent. Remember that. So if it doesn't work out today, you have the ability to adjust and tweak. For my kids, you can see the schedule right here. On Sunday, before we start our online classes, our distance learning on Monday, I had them design their own schedules based off of what we knew from their teachers at the time. And you can see that my 2 girls, they're very much tactile. They needed a schedule that they could manipulate. And so when they're done with math, for example, Eliana, she starts with math in the morning. And when she's done with it, she moves it down to the bottom, and it makes her feel like, okay, instead of those of us that like to check things off the list, she actually moved it down, and she needed that. Same with Anna Sophia, our middle daughter. She likes to move it and just have that realization. Our son used a whiteboard, and he just erases it. So when he's done, he just erases it, and he adjusts it every day. So what has worked is having these tactile, manipulative, dynamic scheduling for them. Let's see. It has been super important that we have a routine, and so their schedules are going to look different because they're at different levels, but our family has a routine, and we have a definite start time, and that has been huge for us when our kids are in school. Face-to-face school, physical school, we have a breakfast and we have a family devotion, and then they get on with their day, go to school. And so we wanted to keep that family breakfast and time together as a family to start our day, so there was a definite beginning, and then everyone knew where to go after that. So that was really important for us. And also at the end of the day, because there's not like a bell that rings in our house, or
no
like
pickup at the curb, no drive line.
Our high schooler yesterday, him and I did an hour and a half workout in the middle of the day, which is fun, but that meant his school work lasted till about 5. And so there's staggered end times depending on their workload. But what's been really great is to have a check-in at the end of the day, and this has been taking place at dinner. And it's a simple, what worked well, what didn't, what do we need to adjust, or in what areas do you need support, are there teachers that we need to reach out to, or whatever. So begin the day, starting the day at a definite time, and then end of the day check-ins have been really helpful for us. let's see. Task switching. Oh, here's another thing before I go into task. It's related. Okay, so yesterday this happened, and I was just thinking our kids are used to being around their friends at school. Sitting shoulder to shoulder, talking during the hallway, but obviously they don't have that right now. So at one time, I was helping our youngest, our elementary age girl, with math, and her sister, who's in middle school, got on a friend to chat, and then Eliana, our youngest, all of a sudden during math decided that she needed to talk with her friends because her sister was talking with her friends, and so that just disrupted her whole flow of math. And I said, I can understand that wanting to be around their friends, but I think we're going to try. We're trying it today, so I'll let you know how it works out. But they schedule times to talk with their friends. So maybe it's a time when their math is done or in the afternoon. But we're going to try to do that today, scheduling times to talk with their friends. And that goes along the lines of what we were talking about, task switching. I'm really encouraging them to finish the task. And when they're done, then move on to the next task instead of doing multiple things at the same time. It is a little tricky because some of them are waiting for further instruction from their teacher, so they can't fully complete the task. And so at that point, they have to move on to another one. But in general, we're talking about that as a family. And that's another good life skill, too, for them to know. We've talked about optimizing productivity, so I have just probably like your kids. Some of them need to get their energy out, like me, first thing in the morning. Some of them need a little space and quiet time. Our son, our high school son, he needed to be separate. His workspace, he needed to be able to focus, have quiet. Quiet is really big for him, and his stuff all laid out, whereas I am working with our elementary age daughter on the kitchen table. She likes to have all her stuff spread out. She has access to snacks at the pantry, and we can be there together, and I can help her as needed. So it's a little bit more of a community involvement with her. And then our middle school daughter has her system all laid out too, and they've figured out so far what works, what workspace is helping them optimize their productivity. We've had to adjust some things, and we're still going to have to adjust some things as well. So a really tricky thing for me is Rory has been totally dedicated towards work stuff, and I've kind of taken on this homeschooling stuff, supporting our kids through the amazing things that our teachers are doing. But I have had to adjust my work schedule, and what that looks like, I think I found a great pattern, but I'll let you know next week or in a few weeks. But in the mornings when I sit down and work with my fourth grader, make sure she's following her things that she needs to do and helping her with technology and finding her math textbook and all that kind of stuff. I have my computer, we have our computer side by side, and I do stuff that is like answering emails or kind of some more routine or mundane stuff where I don't need my creative space, and I can work around clutter and I can easily be interrupted. So those tasks where I can be easily interrupted. When she's done for the day, which is around 12:31, then I go up to my office, shut my door, and have my quiet thinking personal space where I can get my lessons planned, my all our projects done where I need that time and space. So that is how I've had to adjust. So if you are a working parent also trying to manage your kids' schedule, something like that might help. I don't know. It works for me so far. And then we're in the midst of this, but rethinking technology guidelines. So in the past, we have not allowed our kids to have technology up in their bedrooms. However, our son, he needs quiet to work, and the quietest place with good sunlight and organization for him was his bedroom where his desk is. And so that's requiring us to check in more frequently with him and just make sure that he's actually on task, and he has been doing a fantastic job at doing that. But so this is something that we've had to bend the rules, our family rules, a little bit as far as rethinking our technology guidelines, and more of that will be coming as well.
Yeah, for sure. And like Leslie was saying, we are just sort of wading through this with you. And as we were thinking about how we could give some additional tips and additional help to folks, we immediately thought of our two favorite homeschool families. And so we are going to now jump on a Zoom call with the principal, the director, the CEO of Milburn Academy, Kristin, and the principal, CEO, and executive director of Rubel Academy, Jennifer, and get their tips. Between the two of them, I think they have maybe close to like 30 years of homeschool experience between their two families. and they have wonderful families, amazing kids, and so they're definitely doing something right. So let's jump on a Zoom call with them and see what they have to say, what tips they have for really just creating an environment and flow and scheduling to really help kids thrive with learning at home. Okay, here we are. Thanks, Kristin and Jennifer, for joining us and sharing some tips on homeschooling. Kristin, you've been doing this for about 4 years now, is that right, with your family? And Jennifer, you, how many years have you? I mean, you've got working children, so how many years have you been homeschooling, Jennifer?
About maybe 20. I don't. Yeah, something like
So,
that. Close to, yeah, probably about 20.
A little bit of experience anyway. All right, so Kristin, as you've been working with your little ones, your oldest is a fourth grader or fourth grader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so you've been working with your little ones. What are some of the tips that have been really useful for your kids as they learn at home?
Yeah, so thanks. I do have a fourth grader, a third grader, a kindergartner, and a preschooler. So all under the age of 10, and it's just controlled chaos, really. But we love it, and this is our 4th year. I did a lot of schooling with my kids, so I'm used to having a lot of little ones around doing different things. So I think first and foremost, it's a good reminder for all of us to know that this kind of season of life that we're in isn't going to be forever. It's not going to last forever, even though it seems like it might. And so I would encourage everyone to first just take advantage of the time that you get to have with your family and with your kids more than you normally get to have with them. And all your minutes of your day don't need to be spent doing school with them. You can have fun too. But with that said, I would say that my biggest aha when I first started was that kids really thrive on a routine. No matter if they're 3 years old or 30, I think we all like to have some sort of routine just to feel productive and successful. And so I would say you don't need to create a schedule per se, like that's 9 o'clock do this, 10:30 do this, 11 o'clock do this, but just kind of a flow of your day. What do we start with? What's next? Who cares what time it is? Then what's after that? Doesn't matter what time it is, but just kind of a checklist of things that everybody needs to accomplish in the day. I think that's really helpful. And like I said, even if you have kids that aren't even in school yet, I think that helps when everybody's at home all the time, just to have some sort of routine to your day. Jennifer, do you have anything about that?
No, that's how we have loved doing it too. And I think it helps set expectations for ourselves and our kids of where we are in the day. And yeah, I think a big thing I always say is we want the routine to serve us. We don't need to serve a schedule. You know, it's to serve, we set it up to serve our families. So if we need to make adaptations to that, that's great. And that's, you know, with the end goal in mind and the bigger picture in mind. So yeah.
Awesome. Great. And so Leslie, you started some routine things as well, not necessarily this time this time that, but it's just what Kristin was saying, and that's tended to work out okay for our kids, right?
Yeah, we have a definite start time, which has been helpful, a family breakfast together. And then there's some of our kids that do have to follow a time-based schedule because they have a live session at 9 a.m. or you know, by 3:30 something needs to be submitted. So there is a lot more flexibility, and their tasks can be done on a different timeline than as if they were at school, but there's still some time conscientious things that they still need to take into account so far in the first 4 days.
Yeah, and they get hungry, so you're going to want to feed lunch, of course.
Yeah.
Not pantry more than normal. They eat all day long.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. So apart from routine, what else, Kristin?
Yeah, so I also think it's important to take breaks throughout your day and encourage your kids in that sense to not feel like they have to do all of their hours in one chunk of time, especially since most of the kids now are doing school online. That's a lot of staring at a screen, and that's just a lot to take in for, you know, whether it's 1 hour or 6 hours. It's just nice to take breaks. I think it helps our brains and make sure to, you know, it makes us function better when we take breaks. So with the little kids, we do a lot of kind of movement activity. when we take breaks. And one thing they do at public school around here, and if you don't know about it, it's really great. It's called gonoodle.com, just GONOODLE.com. And it has just silly videos on it that all foster movement and getting up and moving around and dancing and stuff. And they're really short, so they're easy to just implement, especially if you're already doing stuff that's online, you're already connected. You can just click on a little video. Otherwise, I send my kids outside to run down the street and back. I mean, it could be as simple as that. Do jumping jacks and push-ups. My boys love that. And it just kind of refocuses, and it's silly sometimes, but it's just, I can tell they have the wiggles and they need to move around. And so encouraging your kids to take breaks and not to have to do something for hours on end, because they'll just start to, I don't know, get distracted and zone out anyway. And then just for yourself to take a break as well. I like breaks, and I have to function with, just some time to myself, or time to reset for the afternoon. So kind of build in those breaks throughout the day into your routine, whether you're trying to accomplish something else, like if you're working as well, when are you actually going to just take a deep breath and not work and not do school? Like, there has to be some time in there that you have to reset and refocus. So lots of grace, lots of patience, more than probably you've ever had to give before. Just to be patient with each other and gracious. So I'm sure Jennifer has more insight on that too.
Yeah, Jennifer, what's worked well for break schedules for your older kids and that sort of thing?
I would say my older kids are probably, I have 2 in high school, and I have a college student, senior in college, and then one that's out of school. It's working, just for context, but they probably monitor themselves as far as breaks now. But we do have things where we have an indoor basketball hoop, and my 9th grader will take a break and shoot hoops for a while. Or I know when the kids were younger, we had a mini tramp that we would use inside the house if the weather was bad. Of course, go out, take a walk as a family around the block, or do incorporate folding laundry or something else that you need to have done in that time. But I think it was fun for them when they were younger, when I did it with them, whatever it was, whether it was the push-ups or jumping jacks or whatever. I mean, not every time necessarily, but just I needed the exercise too, and the break and the physical movement, and it kind of made it like we're on the same team. We're doing something fun together as well as working together. So I think that was enjoyable for us and good.
I can see us needing, I already know that we need to incorporate more breaks throughout the day, because I think they're used to having all their sports activities at the end of the day. So they need a little bit, they need more frequent movement, as you both said, during the day. So that's something we need to work on in our household.
Awesome.
I would say, along with breaks too, eating snacks that are like protein based, something small, drinking plenty of water. I think that kind of goes with it, because that also helps our brains. And I think it helps the kids to stay energized. And so I would add that when you take a break, or when you're doing reading or something, just fuel them along the way, little things to keep them going. That can be encouraging for them too, to have a little break and get a snack.
Great. What are the things, Jennifer, as you've been thinking about?
Or motivation.
Motivation. Yeah. What are the things, Jennifer, as you've been thinking about, tips for families, have been high on your list, things that have really worked well for your family as kids are learning at home?
Yeah. I would say that one of the big things is to see this as part of a long haul. This is to try to have a vision for the future as you're getting to school your kids at home, or support them in their schooling at home, that you're instilling in them, or helping them to instill in themselves some life skills that are going to be beneficial for their whole lives. And so the content is important, but also the things like time management that they're learning, and the kind communication with one another when they're frustrated, and all the things that we can grow in. I don't ever want to overlook the value of that when I'm doing school with my kids, because those are qualities that are going to help them thrive in future education settings, but in work and life, being a good neighbor, all those things. And so I would say keep that in mind as you're doing your your school, as your kids are doing their school. And sometimes that means stepping aside from math or whatever, to grammar, whatever they're working on, to talk about, what's going on right now and how are you feeling and what caused you to react that way. And just helping them to grow in character as well. It's a great opportunity right now, I think, for families to be able to pull aside. And I see that in my family, great opportunities for us to have those conversations and communicate what I want to about our family values and how we can make this a really positive season, and where they're taking ownership of it as well, where this is something that they can get excited about what they're learning, and that you're giving them the tools to be responsible for their own education in many ways, because they having to be a lot more self-motivated, setting goals, the older kids, getting their work done, but it's not just to check a box, but they're learning the skill of how to get their work done and hopefully enjoy maybe learning some new things too, that they didn't have an opportunity to learn before, go deeper with something. So
Right. I like that perspective of taking the long view and capturing some of those teachable moments that you wouldn't necessarily get to see when your kids are away at school versus being at home, and some of those more character focused things. And then also, the opportunity to dive deeper into particular topics of interest for kids as well, which makes me think of, we've been in touch with a good number of teachers who are unable to actually deliver new content to their students based on district guidelines or school guidelines. And so they're essentially not teaching new things. And for some students, it's, a real sense of loss that they don't have new learning, coming in and able to, learn new things, which they're excited about. What kinds of tips would you both have for sort of more self-guided learning and parents helping their kids do some of that self-guided learning in the event that their school is not actively moving forward during this time at home?
I know Jennifer always has great things. Listen when Jennifer talks, okay, people. But I'll start real quick. I have a couple of practical resources that we've used before, and they're all internet based, because obviously libraries are closed and you can't go check out books. That'd be the first thing that I would suggest. But there are a few websites that are offering things for free right now, and one of our favorites is called mysteryscience.com. Just mystery and then science.com, and it's usually a fee to get the lessons, but they're offering it for free right now for I don't know how long. I'm sure for as long as this pandemic is happening, but it is really user friendly, really easy for kids to log in and find a lesson that they're interested in. And there's experiments that can go along with it. You can kind of take it as far or as narrow as you'd like, depending on what you have access to in your words and things to kind of check understanding. So we really like that one. There's a lot of really great resources that you can purchase on teacherspayteachers.com. I've used that a lot, and there are some free things on there. There's a filter box, so you can click the grade level and then you can click free. That's what I always do, and see what comes up for free for basically anything. You can search multiplication tables or reading comprehension and click the grade level and then what you'd be willing to spend, and there is a free box. So we've used that, and that's just kind of really great print and go kind of things, not a lot of prep, and that's nice for those kids who are wanting to do stuff but maybe don't have a lot of things to do, like you were saying. And so those two resources are great. There's a couple others that are really fun for younger kids. I can maybe tell you later, but
email them to me. Send them to me, and I'll put them on this post, or we're going to put this video in a post, and we'll just list all those resources. Yeah,
perfect. So geared much more towards the littler kids, but great resources. So that's kind of what I thought when you first asked that question. What about you, Jennifer?
Yeah, some of the things I thought about were having them to think back to what they've learned this year or maybe last year, and something that piqued their interest, and do what I would call a unit study, where you dive deeper into that subject. You can do a lot of research online and find things, or maybe there are books in your home, or someone that that works in that industry, or that that has that in their background. But you can do a unit study, and you could that could be self-directed, or parents could help give guidance to that for middle school and high schoolers. Just encouraging them to continue to enjoy learning. I think that's one thing I always want my kids to have, is a real love for learning, so that their whole life they'll enjoy learning new things. And I think unit studies can foster that. Let's see. Yeah, I think another idea I had was, I mentioned interviewing. I think there are, a lot of people in our lives that we can learn from. And this might be an opportunity to think of interviewing grandparents or people that they know over the phone or Zoom or whatever tool, FaceTime, and learn that way. We can learn a lot by hearing about people's stories, what they've experienced, their own personal histories, what part of history they've experienced in the world. And that's a way to build connection with other people too. And that might spark an interest to do a unit study on something, as well. And then sharing good books at home. You could have a book club in your family, or among friends, where you have a book. And I know libraries are closed, but there are a lot of online library resources. A lot of libraries are providing free, they do anyway, but ebooks or audiobooks. You could do something like that, where you're doing either nonfiction or a fiction book together. And there may even be questions and things that would be available for those, to guide discussion. Or learn a foreign language. There are a lot of apps where you could learn a foreign language, and someone who's in middle or high school might already be doing that, and they might want to add another one, or they might want to go deeper with a foreign language, which I know you guys, Fosters, could give them a lot of direction on. But that's something else you could do during this time, and I think I know the library here has access to a whole curriculum for learning foreign language that you can do, and it's free. Yeah. So you pick your language, and it's all there. So
yeah,
the ways to learn.
I think it's really great that there's this time that some kids, like you were saying, aren't given schoolwork, that they can actually choose what they want to learn. Yeah. That doesn't happen ever. So the fact that they can have a choice now in what they are interested in, especially for those kiddos who aren't getting a lot of school from their district and teachers. Take advantage of that as a parent. Like, what is your kid into? And just kind of dive into it. It's a neat opportunity, because they normally don't get to choose what they're learning necessarily.
Yeah, those are great ideas. Thank you. And I've been thinking that our three families are very fortunate in that we have families, we have spouses, we have a support system built in, and we also have work to do. I don't think we've had losses in income, but no. None of us are unemployed in our three families. We're able to find some work from home. And I've been thinking specifically about particularly single parents with children at home, and single parents who need to be working at the same time. And I was wondering what your favorite go-to, I need a break, so here's something for you to do, ideas have been over the time that you've been homeschooling, because particularly for that family that parent that's on their own with kids, and needing to get some work done because it's all up to them. What kinds of tips or activities or resources might you be able to share for that kind of situation?
Well, on that note, I'm super thankful that we do have like these family units that are working together as a team. And if you do have a spouse or a lot of children, then you want to think of that as like your team unit, that you're working together, not against each other, and to really use one another's skills and abilities well, and maybe switch around some of the responsibilities during this time too. For instance, my husband does a lot of breakfasts now and makes breakfast so that I can get ready for the day, just because he's here and he can do that. And so it kind of takes away some of that extra burden that I don't know if it's burden, but extra stuff that I'm used to doing. So that's really a blessing, and I love that. But two things that came to mind with your question of I need a break, go away. Not necessarily, but
but kind of, yeah.
But kind of. One of them would be, we do a lot of puzzles around here, especially during this time since we just can't leave. And so there's a couple of my kids that love puzzles. And so that's really a fun reward for them to finish something and then go do a puzzle. And so just thinking of what is your kids' currency basically, and what would they be motivated by to kind of get something done and then go take a break by themselves and do some of that independent work, whether it's puzzles or coloring, or maybe they just love reading and they want to go sit and read. But one thing that I implement almost daily is FOB time, and that stands for flat on back. And I don't care how old you are, you will go to a space where you can be flat on your back, and you could sleep if you want. That's what I do sometimes, or read, or write, or color, something where they can be flat on back. I mean, if they kind of roll over to their stomach, that's fine, but just kind of just that blanket, like, okay, it's family FOB time. Mom needs a break, and we all need to kind of just chill out. So usually that's in the afternoon, kind of witching hour, where everyone's kind of sick of each other, in a separate space. So those are the couple of things I thought of. Jennifer?
Oh, I like the FOB. We did something like that, but not on the back. We did quiet time every afternoon, and that was really, it was to serve the same purpose. Everybody had to have a different space. If you don't have enough rooms in your house, you can set up a couch as one person's space and whatever. But that was really helpful for me, especially when my kids were younger, where I knew everybody was doing something and they could pick what they wanted to do, but it had to be quiet during that time. And I think that was just, it was really helpful to me. I think it was helpful for them, especially when you're all together all the time, just to have that time to pull away. And something in our culture we don't do a whole lot of is quiet time. And I think that probably was helpful, life skill building as well. So that, and then another thing that's a little more active is I remember we had a jar where if people needed something to do and I didn't necessarily, maybe they were done with their work and I needed to be doing something else. And it could be a job jar where you have chores, or you could have different fun things in there, and you just put in slips of paper and the kids can pull out, something, and whatever they get is what they get. And it might be doing a puzzle, or it might be folding laundry, it might be taking the dog around the block, or, it might be grabbing a sibling and doing something with them. But then that gives them some variety, it occupies them. And I really love, Kristin, what you were saying about incorporating everybody else in life, because I think, none of us can do it all. And so this is, again, a great opportunity for our kids to learn some basic life skills in terms of home management and stuff, whether they help, like right now, even though my kids are all older, everybody's taking a turn helping with dinner and doing different things in the house, because I want us all to like each other when it's done, and want to have some peace. And I think, so no one person should be doing it all, and that sometimes happens in a house. And so then they're also developing or growing those life skills. I think it's good for everybody. So I like what you're saying too, Kristin, about team. It is, you're on a team together, and we're, we can talk through, maybe we need to do this differently or whatever, but you're working together for each other. So
great.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. Great reminder. Leslie, you've been mostly managing our kids with the at-home learning. What kinds of what questions do you have for Kristin and Jennifer?
Yeah, so this change happened so abruptly for many families around the nation, going from kids being able to respect and listen to their teachers to all of a sudden having to listen to mom. That's been a little bit of a challenge. So I was going to ask for, if you guys can remember, or Jennifer, when you 20 years ago when you first started this, what were some tips or ideas or something so that your kids could respect mom or dad as the fellow class coordinator or lead teacher, whatever, in the house, because that's been a little bit of a challenge because they're not used to us taking that role.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's tricky, even when we've been at it for a while. I think I think a lot of times it means pulling away, not in the heat of the moment, but having a conversation, kind of a more global conversation about where we are and why you're asking them to do these things. That this is, I tell my kids, because we've always done classes outside of school, outside of the home also, when we've done homeschool. And so, ultimately, as parents, we are an authority over our children. And so we're delegating, even if we send our kids to public school or private school or whatever, we're delegating that to someone else for that time period. And so, I think letting them know that we are, that we're on their team, that we're trying to help them, that this is to help them accomplish what they have on their plate to do. And then talking about relationship, I think that's really important. And that's where the heat of the moment's obviously not obvious for me anyway, a great time to talk about it, but another time in the day, maybe sitting down with a cup of tea with them or something that they would enjoy, and talking about the relationship, and that even though our discussions are like, well, my teacher said this, well, I want you to also do it this, add this to it or whatever. But just reminding them that you are the one that's in authority. You're responsible for them ultimately, in their education. And yeah, I think I think another thing too is, maybe might go along with this, is asking them what their goals are. What are they wanting to accomplish, especially the older ones? Like, what are they hoping to have educationally throughout the rest of this semester, if that's how long we're at this? And say, how can I best support you in that? What do you need from me? Maybe it's accountability, maybe it's encouragement, maybe it's being a scribe while they're brainstorming. Maybe there's something that you can do, and that way that also communicates that I'm here to support you. When I'm asking you to get to your work, it's because I'm trying to help you reach your goals. That's more of the probably for an older student, but yeah, I think that sometimes helps too, to put it in perspective why you're asking them to do something that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
You're for them, and you want them to succeed and thrive and grow. So.
Yeah. I guess it goes back also to Kristin, what you're saying, like, we're a team. We're going to work together as a team, reinforcing that.
Yeah, those are great, Jennifer. I love that. Just being available and asking them what they would like from you, or how can you help them. That's really good. I know that for us, I'm sure maybe Leslie, you've said something like, would you talk to your teacher that way? At school, or you talk to Mrs. so-and-so like that. And so I still throw that out there. If you were at school, is this how you would talk to your teacher? So which, in the heat of the moment, probably not the greatest thing, but yeah, this abrupt change, like you said, didn't just happen and affect some people. I mean, it's affecting all of us, and it has affected our kids with an abrupt change of a teacher, and it's not who they're used to every day, and it's not who they're used to seeing for 8 hours a day. And so to not like jump into the deep end with crazy high expectations would probably be a realistic goal, to just kind of ease your way into it and be have some realistic expectations that, my kid's going to be probably disrespectful to me sometimes. And yes, we need to talk about that, like Jennifer said, and kind of reassess that situation, and how do we respect mom as mom, but then also as like your teacher or lesson overseer. And what does that look like? I mean, you kind of need to set new ground rules, I guess, just because your home environment does look really different. So there might be some different things that you need to kind of talk about. And I mean, I think all our kids know, we're the parents, we're the boss, but they need constant reminders of like, we know what's best for you, and we know what you kind of need to do and when you need to do it. And we don't want to like grab their hand and come on, give them those life skills, but to have that respect is really important. And I think if you have a married couple, if you're, this is different for single parents, but if you're married, then you want to make sure that, your spouse is also kind of has your back, and notices and, says, hey, that was a great way to respect mom. You did this right away, or you said okay, even though you didn't really want to do it, or, hey, I did not like how you treated him, when you did this, let's talk about it. So you're just that whole like teamwork mentality, you're kind of all have each other's backs. But I can't imagine it would be a huge learning curve. And I struggle with that on a daily, just the whole respect thing, and obeying immediately in a happy way. It's not always perfect. So it's just constant like character building and reinforcement and patience.
And that brings me, that's a good segue. So I'm seeing, and I think it's because the abruptness of this change, but and different stressors or anxieties, that it's going to impact my 3 kids differently, right? Some have better coping skills to deal with change than others, but I'm observing patterns or behaviors of things that we need to work on as a family. Like, how do you deal with change? What are healthy ways to deal with change? Or when you feel frustrated with math, how are you going to push through that? Whether that is taking a brain break right now, or going to jump on the trampoline and then coming back with a fresh sense. But I think it's good. It's both a rose and a thorn that we're seeing these coming to our attention. And then it's a great life skills. You both have been talking about life skills, but it's ultimately our job as parents to raise contributing, caring, sensitive, respectful citizens, of our global situation. So that's been a challenging thing for us to see, as well as how sometimes the reactions to stress or anxiety or change are displayed in our kids.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, like you have great ideas about taking a brain break and all that, but just the positive reinforcement has helped a ton, even just in the last week or so with this change, just with kind of what we talked about earlier about missing friends or grieving the activities, but just I feel like I can get on the bandwagon of like nitpicking and criticizing and, oh, you haven't done that, or we need to do this, or nag. Whereas if I'm really working on that positive reinforcement, then the days just go better. And, hey, I really loved how you took a break when you got frustrated with math. That was a great way to deal with it. And, can I help you now? Or I don't know, just all those positive reinforcements.
I think that's great. And we can catch them doing the right thing and celebrate that with them. That's awesome. It goes a long way.
Fantastic. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate all of your insights and tips, and I think that there's a lot of practical, actionable things for families to take away from this conversation and start implementing and experimenting, because every family is different. Every situation has its own stressors and unique realities, right? Any closing thoughts, Jennifer?
We probably touched on this, but the focusing on the relationship over maybe the schooling right now is really important because of the stress and the things that we're building into our kids, and really prioritizing them as people and the relationships that we're developing with them during this time over the stress of schoolwork even, and the change and all that. And part of that is talking about all those things with them. But I would say that's something I would encourage us all, myself included, to focus on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Closing words, Kristin?
That ditto for Jennifer. The person is more important than what kind of school they're doing or what they're learning. Along those lines, I think a lot of us can get pulled into that comparison trap. I know we don't see a lot of people these days, but we're still connecting and on a level, talking to other parents who are in this with us and doing the same thing. And I think it would be easy to fall into that kind of comparison trap, like, oh, I'm not doing as much as they are, or I'm not doing what they're doing or how they're doing it. And so you just have to kind of do what works for your family and your family dynamic, and what that looks like is going to be way different than what it looks like for your neighbor, so who's also essentially doing this kind of schooling too. So just do what works for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Leslie, any closing words?
I think the main thing that I keep telling our kids and our family every day is, if it didn't work today, there's still tomorrow. Like, there is time to adjust, and it's actually a good thing to adjust and tweak and modify and not be so stuck in one way or another. So I think that's a big lesson for us right now. We're only in day 4, but we've adjusted and it's a good reminder.
Yeah.
to adjust as needed.
Great.
So, and focusing on the relationships, which both of you mentioned, is huge. I mean, we're, to not sacrifice the relationships with our kids and our family over these types of stressors. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Thank you very much.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for including us.
All right. Well, that was a great conversation. We are so thankful to Jennifer and Kristin for sharing their homeschooling insights, and just wanted to, finish with letting you know that we are totally rooting for you. This is a crazy time, but the good news is we're all in it together. It's
are,
craziness for all of us.
absolutely. Yeah.
So
And we would really appreciate to hear your tips and what is working for you and your family, and even resources that you found that are working, and just little tips to make it through your day as a home school director, home worker in this new abrupt change in our lives. So be sure to comment below and share with our community and with others what's working for you.
yeah, so share here, and everyone can be a part of the conversation, and we can all help each other out. Be well, and keep up the good work.
Yeah.